This conference will now be recorded.
August 1st, 2022, 6 p.m. Thank you to those that are listening to our live audio feedback. Just a reminder that those that wish to make public comments during the meeting are encouraged to attend in person in our chambers and send comments to the town clerk prior to the meeting. Town Manager Stevens, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Vice Mayor DeHassa.
Present.
Mayor Hurlbert.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Pichot.
Here.
And please let the record show that Commissioner Pugh is absent with notice.
Go. Everybody rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
I have one, Mayor.
All right.
I would like to add under presentations, item B, to have the chief do an employee recognition.
Okay.
I also, Madam Mayor, would like to add an announcement as item D.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we're good. I'll entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? There we go. All right then, please join me in welcoming FCCMA Senior Advisor Dan Clayman. Let's see what we have here. All right, Dan Clayman, who will be giving us an update on the town manager search. Welcome, Mr. Clayman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Dan Clayman. As was stated, I'm a senior advisor with the Florida City and County Managers Association. Senior Advisors is a program of retired managers who provide assistance to existing managers in cities and counties, providing essentially advice and mentorship. We also provide a service to very small communities of assisting them in finding city managers or town managers, which is what we are here to do today. A little bit about my background so you have some idea of what I bring to this conversation. As I mentioned, I'm a retired city manager. I was city manager of Tallahassee for 20 years, county manager in Hillsborough County for 10 years, and worked for the mayor of Jacksonville for approximately 7 years before retiring to Port St. Lucie to be near grandchildren. Because I don't retire very well, I do things like this to stay engaged. So that's a bit about me. What I would like to cover with you tonight is to go over 4 issues. First, to review applications that you have received for an interim town manager. Second, to discuss the selection process for an interim manager. Thirdly, to discuss the entire recruitment and selection process for a permanent manager, if there is such a thing in this business, for a longer term manager, let me put it that way. And lastly, to discuss the recruitment profile that we would be using to advertise the vacancy that you have. Turning first to the interim town manager question. At the mayor's suggestion, we began a process looking for someone who might be able to serve as an interim until such time as you secure the more longer term replacement. It will probably take us 3 to 4 months to go through the entire process. So we're looking at what might be 2-3 months of time when an interim manager would serve. We received 3 applications for interim manager. I believe they have been provided to members of the commission. Let me just read their names into the record in alphabetical order. The first is Michelle Lee Berger, who most recently as a town manager was the manager of Sewell's Point, Florida. Lynn Ladner, who has worked in a number of communities in Florida and Michigan, currently is in Florida, and Alan Rosen. Each of those 3 have expressed an interest in serving as the interim manager of Ocean Ridge. What I would suggest you do this evening is to select 1 or 2 or 3 of those candidates to interview. I don't think you should hire an interim without a face-to-face meeting, just to make sure the chemistry seems to work. And I would suggest, I looked at your schedule for recent meetings, and I've noted that you typically have special meetings also on Mondays. So if it is possible, I would like to suggest that you interview interim candidates next Monday, August 8th at 6 p.m. Obviously, you can pick any other time that you like. I do anticipate that I would be able to be with you. I'm actually going to be in North Carolina, but I'm getting back home on Monday, so I think I could still get here by 6 p.m. to assist in that process. Although if I can't, it's a pretty simple process. I would suggest you have a 30-minute interview with each candidate that you want to talk to. After 30 minutes, I believe you'll be able to determine whether or not this is a good fit for the interim. I would tell you that based on the resumes, all 3 of the candidates clearly would meet the qualifications for serving as the interim manager. And some of them have expressed an interest in applying for the permanent position. So let me stop there and ask if you have any questions about what I've said so far about the interim manager. I want to raise a couple of other issues and then ask you to start to discuss the 3 candidates to see how many or all of those that you might want to interview. I would suggest that the compensation that you provide to the interim manager during the time he or she would be serving as the only manager, and I'll explain that in a minute, be essentially the same salary as you currently provide the town manager. It's my understanding from Tracy that you have some interest in an overlap between the interim manager's service and the time that Tracy is still here. During the time that the person would be here as a consultant to Tracy, I would suggest you provide a compensation something on the order of 80 to 85% of that other salary. So that would mean $132,500 for the time the person would be serving as interim, and during the time that Tracy would still be here, roughly $110,000. In Tracy's communication to me, she mentioned that you wanted some overlap and suggested, I'm doing this as a volunteer, so I'm allowed to be a bit direct, that maybe more overlap than you really need. Some overlap may be helpful. Too much overlap creates confusion in the organization when the police chief or the building official doesn't really know who's in charge. Is it still Tracy Stevens, or is it the new kid who's going to take over? So I would suggest you might want to do maybe a week or 2, but not much more than that. And again, you can work that out once you go through the selection process. I mentioned that I would suggest that you meet on August 8th to interview candidates. I have advised the 3 candidates that I am submitting their resumes to you this evening, and that I would be in touch with them if, in fact, you want to interview them. So let's turn to the 3 candidates, if there are no other questions about what I've said so far. I would tell you that I know one of them personally, Michelle Berger, because I worked with her. I do a little part-time work for the city of Port St. Lucie, city manager, also because I don't retire very well. And she was a member of the city council at the time I was there and she was there, and then she became town manager of Sewell's Point. She has an excellent background in the private sector. She is currently doing some interim work with a company that provides interim manager kinds of services. Lynn Ladner is currently doing some part-time work assisting the manager of Pahokee. And she has done work as the interim town manager of Kenneth City, Florida, but also served as the city manager or town manager or village manager of a number of small communities in Michigan before she moved to Florida some several years ago. The last candidate is Alan Rosen. He is currently also doing a little bit of consulting work. He is, as they say in the business, between jobs. He most recently was the county manager of Lake County, but also has experience as an interim manager in the city of Fort Orange. As I mentioned, I know Michelle Berger personally. I have spoken with Lynn Ladner on the phone. I don't know Alan Rosen very well. So I think at this point I would seek your comments, your questions about how many of these people you might like to interview as interim manager.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's start, Martin, do you have any input here?
All 3 candidates, reading through their bio, are perfectly well qualified. I guess some questions that I would actually have for all of them in their resumes, but if I have to choose, and if that is an option, I would like to interview all 3 of them.
Right. That's the
I think
question.
the easy choice for the commission is to say you want to interview all 3. I think they would all be willing to come here for a personal interview.
Definitely.
Steve, sound good?
Yeah.
I think so as well.
Is Lynn Ladner, because in the top of her resume it says Michigan, she's currently in Pahokee, I take it.
She is living somewhere in Florida. I don't think it's in Pahokee, but it is somewhere in this part of the world.
Like within an hour or something.
Yeah.
Right, close enough. All 3 sound good to you?
Perfect.
I agree. I think that's the best way to go. They all have great resumes, so therefore, how are we going to compare?
May I ask
Yes,
a question,
please.
Mayor? Who develops the questions for the interview?
I can share some questions with the commission, whether I am here or not. You don't have to ask a lot of questions, I think, of the interim, not as intense certainly as you would of the formal candidates. I think you just want to give them an opportunity to talk to you, tell them about themselves. You can ask questions about them and wherever their comments take you. And I think at that point, you'll have a pretty clear understanding of who you like better than someone else.
Which ones want interim and which ones would like to continue?
The person who has expressed the strongest interest in continuing is Lynn Ladner. Although I think Michelle, I haven't asked Michelle that question directly, but I think she may also be interested in the longer term position. I just don't know at all about Alan Rosen.
Gotcha.
But that's clearly one of the questions you should ask them.
Mhm. So is everybody good with that time? Monday?
Yes.
6 o'clock, 1 week from today.
Right, half hour
So
each.
I have a question for Tracy. I came in the other day and there was I assume someone from a temp agency back there. Have we reached out to Karen Hansek at all? She's here and she's willing to work. And she expressed actually a desire to me today, this is new knowledge, by the way, that she would do the interim manager function.
She would have to contact Dan.
Go through Dan?
Yeah.
Okay.
The temp was helping us with the phones, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. She was just helping us with the phones. And Mr. Clayman, I know that I certainly would appreciate any input that you have on this process. So if you want to help us out,
I will try my best to get here. I'm going off with my sons and son-in-laws for an annual camping, hiking, and, pardon me, alcohol imbibing weekend in the North Carolina mountains.
well then.
Can I come?
Monday at 6?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
What I might do is I might send out an email to everybody about some interviews, do's and don'ts, because sometimes we want to just make sure we keep it in a parameter that we don't violate any issues.
Right.
And you'll be at that meeting.
Yes.
Yes, Christie will be there.
Yes, it's easy to ask an innocent question that's very illegal.
And we'll do that.
Yes, if it can be done, it'll happen.
You would not be the first elected official who's ever done that.
All right, so any input that you can give, we would appreciate that. I think the 3, right? Everybody agrees the 3 look wonderful on paper.
I will contact the 3. I will schedule them for roughly 6 o'clock, 6:30, and 7 o'clock. And at the end of the 3rd interview, you should simply decide who you like the best.
All right,
Fair enough?
everybody good?
Good.
That takes care of the interim town manager applicants and actually the process we're going to use to select them. I would now like to go to the more formal, long-term recruitment process, and I have a handout.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What I've attempted to do in this document is to prepare a time schedule that takes us from today to the time when the new town manager would begin work here in Ocean Ridge. We've already talked about August 8th as the date that you would interview the interim manager candidates. What I've also suggested on that date is you take a quick look at a recruitment profile that I'm in the process of developing, and I'll talk to you more about sort of at the end of the meeting. But that's essentially what we would publish. It is what we would put on your website. It would tell people about the job, essentially. So that's what we would do on August 8th. Then after that, we would begin an advertising process. Advertising in what are the 3 publications that we are most likely to find candidates. Publications of the Florida City Managers Association, the International City Managers Association, and the Florida League of Cities. Would also suggest that you post an ad in the Palm Beach Post or any other local newspaper that you consider appropriate. And as I mentioned before, we would place the recruitment profile on the town website. That way you can have a shorter ad and simply say to candidates, refer to the website for a more detailed thing. It's a cheaper way to take out the ad. We would propose that you have the position open for roughly 5 weeks to September 16th. And after that, I would take roughly a week to sort through resumes And I may do that with some help from other senior advisors, or I may do it myself, depending upon how many apply or how busy I am. And then on September 23rd, we would send to you all of the resumes along with my recommendation for what I judge to be the best 5 candidates. You are in no way obligated to paying attention to my comments about who I think is the best, because what you need to do is to decide whom you think are the best. But I will give you my best thinking based on, at that point, what I know about Ocean Ridge, what your needs are, and the backgrounds of the candidates. In this document I passed out, you will notice some of the dates and comments are in bold print. The bold print dates are the ones that would represent town commission meetings. So I'm proposing a special meeting on September 29th at 6 p.m., at which time you would select the candidates that you want to interview. You might at that point say, I like the 4 that Dan recommended, but here are 2 that he missed, and let's talk about those 2, see if we might want to interview 1 or 2 of those instead. And then you eventually come up with a short list. It doesn't have to be 5, it can be 4, it can be 6. Just depends on what you see when you see the applications. Just remember, you're going to have to commit an hour of your time, roughly, to talking to each candidate that you interview. Between the time that you pick the candidates that you want to interview and the time when you actually conduct the interviews, I would ask the town staff to undertake reference checking of the candidates who will be interviewed. This is essentially telephone conversations with current or former employer. Personal references can all be done by phone. It can be done by the person who handles your HR responsibilities or someone else in the government. This is not something that we provide. And then on August 10th, which is again also a special meeting, this one is a Monday. The September 29th date was a Thursday. And the reason for that is I was out of town on Monday, so I couldn't be here on Monday. But on October 10th, we ask that you be willing to commit to an entire day for the interviewing and selection of the town manager. We recommend 50-minute interviews with a 10-minute break, so that you would have interviews at roughly on the hour or half hour throughout the day. We also ask that you schedule a reception, because we believe this should be an open process for the citizenry as well. It can be in this room, or it can be somewhere close by, but essentially an opportunity for citizens to come in an informal atmosphere to talk to a candidate and ask them more about what they might have heard. They may have sat in on the interview and want to pursue a question, and then they might want to share that information with you somewhere along the way before you decide. Again, we think it's important that this be an open process to your citizenry so that they will have as much confidence in the manager that you select as I would expect you would have once you make the decision. So a short reception for an hour or so, take a meal break, and then come back at 6 o'clock and begin the process of discussing and voting on who it is you want to offer a job for the permanent appointment of the town manager. After that date, I would, hopefully with the assistance of the town attorney, negotiate an employment agreement. There is a standard agreement in the profession that is typically used that is pretty simple, and it's in large part plugging in the names, the dates, the responsibilities, things of that nature. But I do recommend that you have a formal employment agreement with whomever it is that you hire. I suggest that for, among other things, it helps everybody understand what the deal is. So you don't get 6 months down the road or a year down the road and your new town manager said, well, I thought you told me that you were going to do this for me, or you were going to pay my membership in the Rotary Club, or whatever it is. Having it all in writing, I think, is a much better process. Plus, it also provides an opportunity for you to identify a formal way to terminate the manager, typically by providing severance. Sometimes it's as important to get rid of a manager as it is to hire a manager. So having an employment agreement in place makes that all understandable by all parties. So then, again, another special meeting on Monday when you would approve the employment agreement that's been negotiated. We would expect the new town manager to begin work roughly around November 1. It might be a week later than that, it might be a couple of days earlier than that. It depends on whether the person has to give notice to a current employer, all of those kinds of issues. I tried to peg it around having the person here for a couple of days before you have one of your regular monthly meetings, so they would be available at least here for that responsibility. The last item on the agenda is whether you want to have the interim manager continue for a little bit for some transition at the end of this process. You don't have to decide that today. You may want to decide that when it gets to be October. But I would encourage you to leave that open as an option, because I think you expressed interest in transition on the front end. I think it's also important for the interim manager if that person is not selected as a permanent manager, it's important for that person to be available to help get the new kid up and running. It's a small town. You don't have lots and lots of staff, so there aren't 3 town managers to help explain how the manager's office works. So having the interim around for a few days may be helpful. That's my suggestion for a process to be used for the search process, the interview process, and the selection process. I will tell you, I planned it somewhat around my schedule because I would like to be here to help you, particularly on the day, October 10th, when you interview all of the candidates and you go through the deciding part of the process. Any questions about the process I've outlined?
October 10th is Columbus Day.
Is that a holiday anymore?
I don't know.
I thought that changed.
If that changed, then I'm good. Just
Well,
There may be conflicts that you know of that I don't know.
Well, no, if Columbus Day was a holiday.
Right.
I don't think it's a federal holiday anymore, but did they just change the name?
it's
It is
indigenous
a
people.
holiday and town hall is closed, but,
What day of the week was that? Was that the Monday?
Monday.
that was the Monday, which also includes the reception, and
So why don't we
meeting
do
has
it
to
on
be
Tuesday?
open. Would Tuesday, Dan, is that a issue for you?
11th.
That would be the 11th?
Let me look.
Because that's 3 situations we have. We'll have the interviews, we'll have the reception, as well as the selection.
I would be free either Tuesday the 11th, or Wednesday the 12th, or Thursday the 13th. So if one of those dates is better for you,
11th would work great.
11th
for me.
works for me. Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, so we
Okay,
just moved down one.
we will change this so that it reflects that that will be the 11th for all three of those activities that are listed here. Any other questions, comments?
I'd like to say thank you for this tremendous service. And one question, how long in your experience is a town manager's contract? What's the length of it?
It should be an open-ended contract so that you can terminate the manager at any time.
Thank you.
And the other question I had,
The phrase that's used in the profession is that the manager serves at the pleasure of the commission. And if for whatever reason the pleasure stops, you should be in a position to decide that the manager's employment should stop. I will recommend that you include a provision in the contract that says you're going to pay some severance if you do that to the manager. But that makes it acceptable to both parties.
on the application process, on the ads, we had discussed in our last meeting, about a week ago, that, we were also trying to look into comparable municipalities, to advertise in comparable municipalities along the eastern seaboard, all the way up into possibly the Hamptons. Do you think that is a wise choice, or would that be
Out of state.
out of state? And
I don't think you'll get much out of that process. The people who are going to apply, especially if they're out of state, are people who are members of the International City Managers Association. They will look at the job board or the information that's available through ICMA if they're in the market for a job. The chances of you finding a candidate who would ultimately be selected by placing an ad in the Wilmington, Delaware newspaper is just extremely slim. I would not do that.
But the ICMA is nationwide,
It's
so people that
nationwide.
are looking for positions will be
There are
looking there.
roughly 10,000 members of
Right.
ICMA. Everyone from town managers, assistant managers, managers of tiny towns, managers of big towns, department heads are oftentimes members. So you get a very large cadre of people who will see the ads.
Okay,
So do you have as strong a presence, your organization, in the northeastern seaboard as you do down here in Florida?
Yes,
So there's a Dan Clayman up there?
Yeah.
all right. Christine,
yeah,
any
there
questions?
are members literally in every state in the union.
So just piggybacking on those questions, I know the Florida League is very strong. And obviously, we prefer the best candidate, and we don't care if they come from Florida or any place else. But would it make any sense, or have you already cast the net for the National League of Cities? I know that there's the Florida League of Cities and the Georgia League of Cities, and then it all kind of comes under this umbrella of the National League.
But we could, you won't get, I think the candidates who are going to apply are going to see an ad in an ICMA publication. They may or may not read National League of Cities publications, which tend to be, people who are actively involved with the National League of Cities tend to be from larger communities, in my experience, than you find. Anyhow, I don't think that's necessary. I'd be happy to have Tracy check on that for you.
If we could just get a cost on it, I mean, if
Okay.
it's not unreasonable. I think we want to make sure that we cast a wide enough net that we're not only looking in a 50-mile radius.
If you advertise in ICMA publications, you will get candidates from all parts of the country. If we were advertising in the wintertime, you'd get candidates from all over the Northeast and the Midwest.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So yeah, that sounds like that would do the trick of the question that you had before about reaching out outside of the state.
Okay?
Anything else y'all want to ask?
excellent job.
Looks like a good
What I
timeline.
will ask you for at some point tonight is at least a vote or or 3 or 4 nods that the dates that we've identified are acceptable to you, so that we don't get down the road and have a misunderstanding. The dates that you would need to agree to are August 8th, next Monday, for interim manager, September 29 to select the candidates to interview, and October 11th.
What date is our town meeting? Would it
And
be October 3rd?
17th.
October 3rd
Yes,
is the regular
first
meeting?
Monday of October.
Mhm.
And then October 17th would be another special meeting to approve the employment agreement. Okay, is
Yeah, that would be the other date.
everybody good with those dates? Right?
Work
We'll make
perfect.
ourselves
I
available?
believe so, yes.
All right, so what we'd like, you'd like a consensus from us that the dates will work?
I will consider that a consensus.
There you
When I used to be a city manager, we would gather together with staff the next day and try to figure out what council decided the night before. And rarely were there formal votes on some issues. But so you'd have people sitting around arguing, well, I saw 2 people shake their head yes, and 1 person who had a blank stare on his face. But we'll take that as a consensus. The last issue I want to discuss with you is the recruitment profile. The recruitment profile is going to look like a 1-page document that describes what we're looking for. It'll be a document that will be placed on the website. It will be a document that will be made available if somebody calls up and says, can you mail me or email me a copy of what it is you're looking for. It will include education requirements, experience requirements, some sense of what the job is, some description of the town of Ocean Ridge. Much of that I can get either off your website or off the internet. The couple of things that I really need some guidance from you on are questions for sure about the salary that you want us to advertise and the education and experience requirements. Let's start with education and experience. It is my understanding that the current job description or whatever document exists about the town manager does not require a college degree, does not require a bachelor's. I would encourage you to advertise for someone with at least a bachelor's degree. I believe you're going to get a lot of applications, and while I don't mind sorting through as many as come in, I think when you say you want at least a bachelor's degree, perhaps someone with a master's degree would be desired. I frankly think most of the candidates will have master's degrees in public administration if we advertise nationally.
We voted on this at the last town commission meeting,
What did
and the
you decide?
consensus was no 4-year college degree necessary. And the logic was, there are candidates, for instance, the exact example I used is if Jupiter, Florida has a town manager for 8 years, doesn't have the college degree, but we want him and he's done a superb job in Jupiter, why would we let a degree stop us from hiring him? As long as he had experience that
Exactly.
would outweigh or equal, I don't quite know how you want to put
No, I
it.
understand what you're saying.
Right, we had that discussion, it was a mixed board there, but I believe that it ended up where we changed the job description to say and/or. How do we go on this one, Christy?
The existing
Preferred.
job description is bachelor's degree or 10 years of progressive experience.
And we added in the word preferred.
Yes.
So the 10 years of experience is the equivalent of the bachelor's degree in the way you've written it?
No.
No.
It was, I think, by the way, it
I
was
think that's how it reads.
private or municipality.
I think there was a minimum, there's a minimum
We have that
education that is required.
No,
No?
there isn't.
Plus
There is no
There isn't. You can graduate from
We-
It's an associate's minimum,
associate,
associate.
I thought.
so an AAA, right? You have an
Oh,
AA.
or, it says or, so no.
No,
Yeah, I didn't think we had it listed there, right?
Yeah, we had a sheet.
I mean, I
Which is
don't
probably
necessarily
easier.
would think that somebody that just rolled out of college is qualified to run this town.
Well, that's what you're getting
But
with
that's-
the and/or.
Right, and your interviews as well.
Well,
Unintended
Okay, here.
consequences.
there you go.
Right.
Right.
Under minimum training and experience, Christie.
Mhm.
I think the discussion was, we had a bachelor's degree, business administration, public administration, or related field. Some were looking for and a minimum of 10 years, we went for or.
Right. Or minimum of 10 years of progressively responsible managerial experience, administrative and accounting work, preferred in a municipal government setting, or any equivalent combination of education, training, experience
Right.
that provides the required knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's what currently exists, and we said preferred bachelor's degree.
Right.
If I listened carefully, I thought I heard you say that with a bachelor's degree, you would need no experience?
Correct. That's as it reads now, which I think is,
But obviously during the selection process, that
So-
person wouldn't make it, so.
I
But
know, but if
you're
getting-
asking
if we're
him
getting
to-
100 applications
Yeah.
because of it, then,
Right.
we're
I mean, we
overloading
can,
our.
we can run the ad however your documents describe the education and experience requirements. I would suggest to you that you really don't want a bunch of applicants who graduated from college last year and think they'd like to live and work in Ocean Ridge.
So we need to make that a little bit more succinct,
On experience.
which only probably needs a change of a word or two.
And,
We're all in the
and
same
your
boat.
experience, I mean, you're doing this on a daily basis, and your experience, are there enough candidates, good qualified candidates that can be selected in this process for us, that do have a bachelor degree? Do you think that we're gonna, I mean, I'm impressed that you found 3 that want to do the interim thing. I'm completely.
Yeah, all three of the interim candidates have
Have
master's
masters.
degrees.
And yes, and that's what I'm saying, I was very
And
impressed.
I think that will be more like what we will find when we go through the application process. So in some ways, it's not as important what you set as the minimum, but it does send a message to how you view the job.
Gotcha.
Right.
I would encourage you to say that you would want at least 5 years of responsible experience.
No.
Because you really don't want
Right.
a kid who just got out of college.
That's fair.
Right. Minimum 10,
But-
well, this had 10 years, actually, minimum 10 years of progressively responsible.
And not necessarily
Experience.
just municipal. Could be a mixture.
That's administrative, accounting work, preferably in municipal government, but it didn't say. And a combination of education, training, and experience. So
Okay.
if we need a tweak in, because we went from or to preferred, that's where we put in the extra word, wasn't it last time,
No,
Christie?
just put the preferred for the bachelor.
It was preferred for the bachelor's.
Because we still do mention here, where do we want to go with our wording, minimum of 10 years? How do we make sure that we,
you say, and a minimum of 5, preferably 10.
so when we go back to and? No.
I don't know the sheet of paper.
Would, so what's, I mean, at
We
the
wanna
end of the
make
day,
sure-
it's up to us. We don't want to have somebody that doesn't have 5 years of experience, yes?
Exactly, 5 years at the minimum, wouldn't you believe?
I would think so.
5 years at the minimum,
Right.
right, of
So-
related experience.
So now the question comes up, based on his recommendation, should we require the bachelor degree?
I thought we should, but I.
We voted against
Yeah,
it for the reason I just
Well,
said.
we're-
If the majority
here
of
working on
council is opposed to that,
Right.
then you shouldn't do it.
Exactly.
We
So
can-
that's how we ended up.
Can we vote again? Yeah.
It's your meeting, man.
Jeff's not here.
Yeah, Jeff's.
That's not fair.
Folks, gentlemen's talking, let's try and keep our comments down while somebody's speaking. All right, Kristen, do you have some suggestions for us to clear up this tiny bit of verbiage?
Well, to be consistent with the decision from the last meeting,
Right.
you could say preferred bachelor's degree.
Right.
Public administration, business administration, or related field, and a minimum of 5 years of progressively responsible experience, 10 preferred.
That's fine.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. So that
Okay,
that
that
cleans
takes
up
care
that
of that
paragraph.
issue.
Yeah, there you go.
I believe Tracy told me that the salary for the position is 125 to 150. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that where we were today? Because we were
That's
just
where we were on
discussing
the
that.
vote.
Well,
That's what you
we
voted
No,
on
it's-
the
That's
last
what-
meeting.
Right, okay, I'm just
Right, we
making sure because
decided
we
the
had
meeting.
discussions today. Right, so what did we say today?
No, well, today the preferred is 125 to 185, but what we said we wanted the ad to say was 125 to
To
150.
150.
Yes.
Are we in a good ballpark there?
I think you're a tad low. I think your range is a little short, as much as being low. You might want to consider it 125 to 160. Because you're going to find candidates all over the place. Some are going to be a candidate that you pay 128, and some are going to be a candidate in order to want to get them to come here and attract them away from other opportunities. You may pay more, you may have to pay more than 150.
Competitive. Would you guys be interested in doing the
I have
extra
no
10?
problem bumping it to 160.
Everybody good with the extra 10? You think 160 would be a
And
nice
obviously,
feeling?
as you get to the end of the process, if you find somebody that you absolutely love, can't live without, and you have to pay them 161, you're allowed to do that.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you.
The only other question from me, I would have, had there been more time, I probably would have called each member of the commission, but let me just ask you at this point, for what you, because we would include this in the recruitment profile as a way of telling applicants what it is you're looking for. Can you give me some sense of what you see as perhaps the next 3 major issues the town and the town manager would have to deal with over the next couple of years?
Sure.
Are they financial, are they organizational?
Our finance is in great shape. It's
Is
more
the police department a mess?
infrastructure.
Look the other way, chief. Martin, you got any input on this, the gentleman?
They need to deal with Terry, obviously.
Is that a plus?
Let's give them the 3 things. Infrastructure, because our
Okay, can we
infrastructure
Yeah,
is
let's
each-
each do it.
Let us
Let's
each have a
everybody.
voice.
It's
Go ahead, infrastructure.
septic to sewer, our biggest
Correct.
issue that we are facing as a town, not just over the next 2 years, but including 2 years, is infrastructure, which is septic to sewer is our main. And that's.
What else? You got a third one for
I
me?
throw in the broad word infrastructure drainage. We're facing a major drainage
Okay.
And
issue,
potable
but you want to
water.
break that up or?
Yes, and
Right,
I would,
okay.
and I would say our long-term potable water contract with our neighboring town.
Right. So there's almost 4 there.
Negotiating.
And then I would add a 4th one, and I think we've all talked about it in different forms, is how do we as a town respond to excessive growth that surrounds us and be prepared for it?
That's a toughie.
I know it is, but you know,
Yeah,
it's an
but it's
issue.
still something that somebody needs to be willing to take
So,
on.
Dan, we've had 2 years, 3 years, actually 5 or 6 years worth of conversations about our little town. We're a square mile, basically, 1,800 residents in season, 1,200 off season. But right across the bridges, we have 2 bridges coming into the heart of town, is tremendous growth going on in that city next door to us. And
Which
they
will
all-
be
they-
affecting us.
Right.
But-
And
It'll
but
be-
they all try to get to our beach.
Adjoining communities are developing or redeveloping to much more intense development
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
than you want to see happen in Ocean Ridge.
And affect us. And just being forward thinking on the effect it's going to be upon us.
I'm sorry, the effect,
The effect it's going to be upon us. We're not
Yeah.
going to match that, but the effect it's going to be on us.
it's not going to happen here, but they're going to drive over the bridge one day.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think that's what,
Mayor?
Yes, please.
May I just comment that this is a town manager / finance director
Yes.
position. So finance is going to be important unless the town commission is going to decide to split those 2 functions.
right.
Good point.
Yes, very good point. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're nice.
That would seem to suggest we should give particular attention in the screening process when looking at resumes, to look at resumes for people who have
Financial background.
financial rather than just managerial.
Yes, absolutely, because that's what Tracy wears 2 caps here,
Thank you.
and we don't have a financial manager.
Okay.
All right, so everybody looking good on the four-ish things we're going to talk about.
Okay. That concludes everything that I wanted to talk with you about this evening. I'm happy to respond to any final questions that you might have. My next step would be to work on the recruitment profile, which I would expect you would see at the meeting next Monday before we put it on the website and before we start the formal advertising process.
If there's any way that we could get it before the meeting, even an hour beforehand, so we can come in already having digested it a
Good
bit,
idea.
would be
Try to
good.
do that.
Thank
Martin,
you.
do you have any questions for the gentleman?
Absolutely not. Thank you
They're
very
gonna
much.
get emailed from a campsite in North Carolina.
What time of day? It's going to change everything. Steve, anything
I'm
you
all
want to
set.
add?
Thank you.
Christine? And thank you so very, very much for all your input.
Thank you.
The timelines, just, I believe, what we were looking for.
Safe travels.
Yes,
Thank you.
and enjoy your Carolina visit. Oh, my. Okay, let's see. We have item B. Chief?
Gentlemen, can you come forward for a second, please? Thank you, gentlemen. So while he's coming up, I want to share a story with you guys. On January 19th of this past year, we received a report that there was a vehicle being stolen from a property here in Ocean Ridge. At the time, that wasn't an unusual occurrence. We were having them on a regular basis, as you all know. We responded to that and were able to track down the suspect vehicle to being a white and color Mercedes out of Davie, Florida. The interesting part of the story is that that vehicle was also stolen from a driveway in Davie, and the suspect had left his bicycle in front of that home. Well, being the diligent detective that Detective Chauvin is, he reached out to Davie and said, hey, we want DNA off of that bicycle, right? Because we want to tie these cases together. Obviously, they did pull the DNA for us. But he didn't stop there. A day later, when that vehicle was recovered crashed and involved in a hit-and-run accident, he went to Broward County and continued his investigation, recovering a fingerprint from inside the vehicle. A single fingerprint identified a suspect. He didn't stop there. He also swabbed the interior of the vehicle for DNA, which was left behind by the suspect. So what do you think probably happened? Well, to our surprise, the DNA matched the fingerprint. Nobody would have guessed that, right? So lo and behold, we now know who our suspect is, and we have DNA, so we get a search warrant for that suspect's DNA. We compare all the DNA, everything matches, right? But because now we've done a search warrant, that DNA goes into the national database called CODIS. And that individual was wanted for a homicide in Broward County. So he was just in our town at some point after committing a homicide in Broward County, still in a car from a community in our town. This is twice in the last 6 months, folks, okay, that diligent police work has tied a local incident to a homicide investigation, one of which was in Broward and one of which was in Palm Beach County. I shared the last one with you at last month's meeting, the July 4th incident where the firearm was recovered and tied to a homicide. This is investigative work that 5 years ago, the Ocean Ridge Police Department was not doing, okay? 2 years ago, we weren't doing that diligent of work. It's because of the skill set, the training, and the diligence that all of our officers put into making these crimes a successful investigation that turn out to not only solve our crimes, but also solve the crimes that are happening around us. So I want to thank you and commend you for the job you've done and the work you do every day.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, that, you know, I really appreciate, Chief for saying that, and that he's been a big asset to me, helping me on a lot of my investigations because he has a lot of investigative experience, so he's always a great, tool and asset to go to, you know, kind of bounce ideas off of him and things like that, which is something that I've been doing since I started here, so thank you for that. And that, you know, we just have to continue to be, diligent because we don't have gates in our community, and we're seeing more and more violent criminals, unfortunately, that come here And some of the individuals that are stealing cars or breaking into cars, they're then finding firearms in the cars. And they are using these firearms, whether it be, thank God we haven't had it here, but throughout Palm Beach County or Broward County, a lot of these offenders are very prolific, and they're not just coming here and stealing cars. They're moving on to robberies. They're moving on to homicides. And it's going to come to the point where at some point we're going to see this overflow, as we talked about, how these communities are growing so rapidly, coming into the community. And we have started seeing it come into the community. So the chief has been very diligent about trying to be proactive and find these individuals before it gets and escalates to a point where that violence may be committed here. So thank you, Chief, for that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
And this one will be much faster. Officer Savino, are you back there? I see you. So, if you've noticed, you've started to see a lot of her, right? So the 29th of July, Nubia does a traffic stop on a vehicle with dark tinted windows, okay? Obviously, it doesn't belong to a resident in Ocean Ridge because she doesn't recognize the vehicle. What she does recognize when she stops the vehicle is all the things that you see on your screen. So let me see, we got 2 ski masks, a concealing mask, 2 handguns, 32 grams of marijuana, which is a felony in the state of Florida still, all on a traffic stop that obviously they were up to no good or they wouldn't be in possession of all of these items, right? But it goes a little further because within 24 hours of us putting out a bulletin to all the law enforcement agencies in the region, our phones were blowing up. Hey, we're interested in that case. The vehicle description matches an armed robbery we're working over here. The suspect you stopped matches this case. Again, this is all diligent police work that we weren't doing 5 years ago. And as Aaron hinted on it just a bit, this is all a result of all of that growth that we were just talking about. That growth we can't control. We can control what happens here. We can keep those folks that don't have a reason in this town out. The only way we can do that is proactive policing. It's these kind of efforts and these kind of acts that the police officers go out and actually diligently search for these bad guys. And that's why we're finding them. And that's why we're arresting them. And that's why our numbers are up. And we just want to make sure that you all know, you've heard me say this time and time again, that the reason we're here is to protect you. We're going to keep doing this, but we need you to support us because that's what we've got to do.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Town Manager Stevens, would you please read the announcements?
Absolutely, Mayor. The meeting schedule for next month is as follows. Regular Town Commission meeting Tuesday, September 6th at 6 p.m., which will include the first public hearing on the proposed FY23 budget, and Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Monday, August 15th at 8 a.m. All meetings are held in the Commission chambers at Town Hall. There will be no building officials forum in the month of September. Residents who wish to sign up to receive important town notifications and news through Civic Ready should sign up on the town's website or call Town Hall for assistance. And then we had item D added by Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let's call a spade a spade. To clarify my internal email, which was circulated to select members, my internal email, which was circulated to select members of the town by a fellow commissioner, I'd like to publicly state that I regret that I used certain expressions. I never meant to offend anyone and was not referring to our residents and especially our staff. If you know me, you know that to be true. I used a figure of speech that was never intended to be taken literally. I would never characterize our residents or our staff in that way, and I apologize truly to anyone who was offended by it. My internal email was sent in praise of our town manager. Tracy has, hands down, been the most professional, transparent, impartial, and hardworking town manager we've ever had. She has helped us transition into a sustainable, wonderfully staffed town with an admirable level of service on all fronts. The figure of speech did not refer to residents in any way. The intent was to share my opinion that we need to continue to move forward with the high standards established by Tracy and her executive team. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you.
All right then. I'm going to open the floor for public comment on any item that's not listed on the agenda, but I would like to first read a paragraph that is part of our protocol that we've kind of not read recently, but since I think we're going to have a lot of people speaking, I'd like to read this out loud. All right, we're inviting the public to speak to the commission on any item not printed on the agenda. Public comments on specific agenda items may be made later in the meeting when the items are taken up. This is a one-time, per item, 3-minute individual limit for public comments that will be timed by the town clerk. Public comment is not meant to be question and answer period, and there will be no dialogue. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment will approach the podium, state their name and their address for the record, and see the town clerk after speaking to fill out a speaker card. All comments shall be directed to the presiding officer of the meeting, not to individual commissioners, staff, or other members of the public. The commission would like to remind everyone that language which includes profanity or cursing, or which is presented in an aggressive or threatening manner towards the commission, staff, or other members of the public is prohibited. Those addressing the commission shall avoid personal attacks against anyone, and the presiding officer has the authority to remove individuals from the chambers if such conduct persists after the officer provides a warning. Okay, so we're all good? Public comment?
Mayor,
Yes.
I have several that were given to us through email.
Okay, start with those.
Okay, the first one is from Ron Kern at Crown Colony Club, and this is actually from the Crown Colony Club Board of Directors. The Crown Colony Club Board of Directors want to thank the town commissioners, the town manager, and all staff for their perseverance with respect to the newly constructed crosswalk. There have been many obstacles during the past 3.5-year period to complete this project, but no one gave up, and for this we are very appreciative. Second one is from Janet Shines. And from Roy Shines as well. We would like to state our opinion that there is no situation in which we should be considering replacing our local Ocean Ridge Police with PBSO in our town to conserve budget or for any other reason. We are completely against this idea and believe it will be very damaging to our town and flies in the face of earlier discussions where we believe the majority of commissioners and residents supported our police force. Our local police force serves a very important function in our town and are a critical part of our residents' safety and security, particularly with all the crime and building that is happening right across our bridges. Chief Jones has brought a new discipline and tough on crime posture to our town, which is working to protect our residents and is much needed to ensure we continue to protect our way of life here in our lovely little town of Ocean Ridge. We commend the local police for their hard and good work and congratulate Chief Jones on the progress he has made in further protecting our town as conditions evolve. We encourage all commissioners to shut down any action that would result in us not having our fine police force.
Can I just add a note there? The charter states that the police force cannot be replaced without a townwide referendum on that subject.
Correct.
So it's not something we need to.
Right.
worry about.
All right.
Okay, the next one is from Sarah Stice, but Sarah is in the audience, so I'm just going to withhold that comment since she's here. And the next one is from Connor Glendinning, 2 Sable Island Drive. I would first like to congratulate Tracy on her new position and wish her well in the future. Even when we disagree, Tracy's transparency is unparalleled, and I hope we can find a new town manager as open to engaging with our residents as she is. Similarly, even when Commissioner DeHassett and I find ourselves in disagreement, I have never doubted her commitment to improving our town. Unlike some of the sitting commissioners, Commissioner DeHassett commands a twice-one mandate, which speaks to the importance of her position on the dais, whether you agree with her or not. On the other hand, it pleases me to see residents engaging with local government, many of whom I likely agree with, even though we elect commissioners to represent our interests. I would, however, caution those who sound frankly unhinged on Facebook to dial back the fervor. Standing behind your beliefs is something quite different from casual insults and unfounded accusations. That's all.
All right, that's all we have by email.
And those are for the
Victor?
record.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'd like to address Madam Mayor and have a statement and a question at the end, and that's really all I have to say.
Need your address and.
Oh, sorry, 46 Harbor Drive South. Dr. Victor Martel. I'm here to ask for an explanation of the statement written on one of your fellow commissioners on July 15th of 2022 for the record in the recent quote. There are many here tonight and online that would like not an apology, but an answer to whom it was directed to and what the meaning was behind it. Okay, the statement includes such words as inmates in prison. I would now like to read that for the record. But don't think for 1 second that the inmates will be allowed to run the prison again. Those days are in the rearview mirror. We are asking for each commissioner to give us their personal thoughts as to the meaning of this statement and whether they support it or condemn it. As we all know, there's a new election coming up in 2023. Many of us would just like to know as individual commissioners where they stand on the statement. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your input. Do we have any other public comment? Sarah?
No response.
Good evening, Sarah Stein, 16 Fayette. I'm representing residents on Fayette. We'd like to kindly remind you that we've asked and are in desperate need of a no turnaround sign at the entrance to our street. We keep having issues. There's not significant room for, especially delivery vehicles. UPS tried to get my car the other day. Wasn't terribly damaged, but it wasn't his fault. He just had nowhere to go. We have asked for in the past a sign that says no public beach access, and we got one. But it has very small, tiny, blue, friendly writing on it, and it's also partially blocked by a street light. So if we are lucky enough to get a no turnaround sign, we would like it to be legible and viewable for anyone that may be thinking that they can just come down and turn around. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? All right then, public comment period. Oh, sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
love this
Sarah.
shirt, yeah.
Tina Gray, 39 Harbor Drive North. Want to tell you about an accident I had a couple days ago on Harbor Drive North, at the corner of Harbor Drive North. Me and my Escalade cornered with Barnacle Busters. So the west side coming in from Harbor Drive North all the way to the road has sea grape to it. A nice tree that makes you go 5 feet into the road, into the center of the road. The east side is covered with ficus hedge in somebody's property, coming out at least 2 feet into the road. There is no way, you can't get around that tree without going into the center, and we hit each other head on, okay? The worst part about it was calling the police and wondering which police officer was gonna show up. I almost had an anxiety
Please,
attack.
let's keep our comments down.
I almost had an anxiety attack. When the police officer did show up, I was calmed and appreciated it that he was nice and calm in the circumstance, okay? I want you, I've told the old mayor, I've told the old police chief, and I've told the old town manager that I don't want any interaction with a certain sergeant, Ermery, okay?
All right, remember,
I
little
understand that,
paragraph,
but
we're
I need to put it on
we're not going to
record.
call anyone out.
Okay, the person that drives 1801, okay? I've had circumstances in the past, and I've told the commission to please, I don't want to be anxious like that again, okay? So I want to put it on record that if there's any problems and he needs to come, please have somebody above him come with him, okay? I also want to say that part of the inmate situation, I'm wondering if that's why we have to hire
officers from the correctional institutes. I mean, it makes me wonder if that's why we're getting officers from prisons.
Correct.
So, correctional institutes. And my last statement, I was researching. I see that you have a master's. I see that you have a bachelor's in art, but you have a master's in business. So shouldn't you guys switch?
Oh, my
And
goodness. Okay,
I
remember,
haven't figured out.
Okay, wait.
Point of order,
Hold
7.5, please. Point
Yes.
of order, 7.5.
Christie,
Okay.
we have a
So-
point of order about the pointing, the
Oh,
calling
I'm sorry,
out,
I'm sorry.
please.
I apologize.
And we're over 3 minutes, so thank you
I
very
just want to
much.
make sure all of you guys have
Thank-
masters.
Thank you very much.
You know, I want her to stand up here with me.
All right, wait a minute, stop, because we don't want this to get out of hand. Do you have, Cindy, please don't make me do this. Do you have a public comment you're going to
I
make?
do.
All right,
I do. I wasn't going to, but she made me.
all right. But
My name
before
is
you
Cindy
do,
Martell.
you remember where I asked us not to go
I
pointing fingers?
understand.
Please.
So my name is Cindy Martell. I've been a resident here for 26 years. I've never had I love this town with all my heart. You know me. I organize beach parties. I am a organizer for my son's brain tumor research. I had such an altercation on my golf cart. I got arrested by one of your officers.
All right,
I'm saying.
remember the pointing and all this?
That broke my spirit. That broke me as a resident. I love this town. I will do anything for my neighbor.
Shit happens, right?
All right, wait. The
You-
audience too, you have to be respectful. Everybody needs to be
I
respectful.
just want to let you know, I still love this town. I still have a lot of hope in this town. But what you all did to me was really awful, was so awful. What you did to my son,
That you all will not work,
I
Cindy, please.
understand.
Is she saying any
I
names?
was on my golf cart.
Who's talking?
I had a panic attack because I was talking to Tina's husband who was telling me about this officer that was stopped behind me. It wasn't a legal stop. He didn't put sirens on me, okay? So I left the scene for less than 2 minutes. I came back home. I didn't come back home. Everything was over. I didn't even get a ticket. I came back 2 months later. 2 months later, I'm getting ready to go run. I get arrested by undercover police officers. How's this happened in this town? You say crime is up? I'm a criminal now. I was a felony. I am just so upset. I still love this town, but you all need to correct some things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other public comment? Joanne, approach.
Zoanne Hennigan, 91 Island Drive South. Tracy, your resignation is a true loss to Ocean Ridge. And for the 20 years that I've been a resident here and I served on the dais, you have been the best town manager that I have experienced. And I really appreciate the work that you have done and the work that our police officers have done. And I think sometimes our police officers are sometimes a little too nice. But I appreciate your enforcement, and I appreciate the enforcement of our building official. But Tracy, back to you. You've been a caring, approachable, professional, and a hard worker, and you will be truly missed. However, I do want to say it's been disheartening to know that we've had some town leaders who have overtly and covertly sabotaged this previously well-run machine. And especially looking forward, whether we like an individual or not, or agree or disagree on a particular issue, we all need to recognize that everyone is working in the best interest of our town. We will never have one staff member or a commissioner with whom or a police officer whom we agree 100% of the time. But it's important for commissioners and residents to understand that. The behavior of some of our residents and commissioners and just people in our town have been underhanded, disruptive, and abrasive. And unfortunately, that behavior has not only been costly to our town, but it's been costly emotionally and financially to our staff and residents alike. It's all an unnecessary expense, and I'm really, a lot of it talking about why we're losing our town manager. But in general, our town has become extremely polarized, and it doesn't need to be. This is a great town, but we do have big issues to solve. We're no longer Mayberry or the village of endless summer. We have some significant issues as a town to solve, and that was addressed earlier with our, the job description for our town manager, like the water contract, septic to sewer conversion, things of that nature. So hopefully, please, let this pettiness stop so we can move forward. And it's okay to disagree on specific issues. That's human nature, and that makes things even better. But to be successful, we need to be rowing in the same direction. And so I urge everyone to stop the nitpicky, divisive behavior and work as one town. And I actually found a quote in the Coastal Star in January 2015 by former Mayor Pugh that said, "It saddens me that a town this small would become so divided. What's deeper than that is that this town has people in this room that don't think about the thing that matters the most. It's the people of this town." Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Any other public comment? Terry? I was gonna faint.
Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. I just want to say that I've lived here, and we're talking about how long people have lived here, over 31 years. And I've had lots of interactions with the police department, and most of it has been completely positive. The only time that it was negative, it was my fault. I blew up at an officer unjustified because we were doing construction and a neighbor had called the police about the cars being parked in the wrong place. When that officer approached me, I blew up. Now, how I handled it was to go and apologize the next day to the officer. And that's what smooths it off, is being able to go back and say, you made a mistake yourself and you corrected it. And it worked. We're buddies now. So, and I just want to say that this police chief and the department as a whole are just wonderful. I've called them frequently when I see a problem, and they respond quickly and professionally. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And that's because Tracy was the manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Hello, Maya.
Hi, Gail Maya Bremen, 5590A North Ocean Boulevard, Ocean Ridge 33435. I don't know what's up for. And I just want to address all of you here because I have been here for 35 years. And I am so proud and impressed with each and every one of you. Listening to the gentleman who started the meeting and looking at all the meetings you guys have to do outside of sitting here on a Monday night. I mean, you're not paid basically anything, and you're doing this for us. So, and thank you, Tracy, for all of your time with us. But thank you, police department. I've never had anything but the most wonderful connection with you. And I'm sorry to sound like who's always a positive person. But I think you guys are great. Thank you. I mean it. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much.
Let's vote ourselves a raise.
That's right. Well, we got them now. Yeah, 12%. Do we have any other public comment? All right then. Public comment period is now closed. All right. We need to approval of the consent agenda. Town Manager Stevens, will you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Absolutely, Mayor, thank you. There's just one item, acceptance of the revenue and expenditure reports for June 2022.
Okay, I will entertain a motion on approving the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, goes with that. Now we have agenda item Number 2, request for waiver of building permit penalty fees for 6550 North Ocean Boulevard, Unit 10. Town Manager Stevens, would you please update us on this item?
Absolutely. This is from when the town received several phone calls on June 1st, 2022 from neighbors who were reporting work being done at 6550 North Ocean Boulevard, number 10. That same day, a stroke work order was placed on the job site for working without a permit. The homeowner, Sloan Sherman, has now requested a refund for the permit for a $925 penalty fee. This fee was imposed as per the town code for working without a permit at her residence. According to section 67-58 in the town code, 4 times the total amount of the permit fee applies if the total cost of the work on a building or structure exceeds $5,000. The cost of the job for this project was $9,500, and we gave you in your package a breakdown of the fees. 20 days after the work had begun, the permit was applied to repair, remove, or replace water damaged deck, planks, and railings. The applicant paid the expedited fee. Their work was in progress and they were anxious to complete by July 4th. The expediting fee moved the application to the top of the pile for the building official to review. And since the applicant paid the expediting fee, the building official reviewed the application and provided comments to the applicant requesting additional items as it was not complete. The permit was approved and issued on July 6th. Please note the work is still in progress. As of today, no inspections have been performed and the permit is still open. I believe we might have Ms. Sherman in the audience to speak with you regarding the request, and also if you have any questions regarding the work, our building official can give you information.
All right, should we hear the building official before we speak with Ms. Sherman? Would you like to start us off? Come on up.
If you'd like.
That's fine.
First of all, thanks for having me. I've never been to a town hall meeting
Oh.
before. I'm a new member. of
Good
Coast
first
Range,
one.
So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. And I apologize for getting off on the wrong foot. I had a couple of boards that were rotted, fell through my balcony, and I was concerned with my current situation and surgery that it was deemed unsafe. I was informed that if it was a simple repair of a couple of boards, that a permit was not required. I was then met with the building official who said it was required, so we stopped work. We have a full drawing, engineering and just submitted, permit pulled, permit approved, and the gentlemen are now finishing the job, and I believe a final inspection is probably gonna be due by the end of this week. So I followed all of the instructions I was given. I was not aware, I'm not part of the HOA there, which I thought originally was their responsibility, but again, it seemed like a dangerous situation and I wanted to replace 1 or 2 boards. I was not aware it was not something that I needed a permit for, as it was not a replacement, it was a repair. So I'm just asking if you could grant me a little leniency. It's almost $1,000 and it's from my own money, so that's all I'm asking.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Guy, would you like to speak to us on this?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We have this packet, could we show the pictures? The only thing I have to say is, whenever the code enforcement officers in the town or the building official, myself, go out, if it's egregious is the only time that we actually apply these rules. It's actually in our ordinance, it's required that we point these things out. And if it is work without permit, as you can see, that is more than 2 boards. The entire deck was removed, the entire rail system was taken off. And I was led to believe that the owner was probably told by her neighbors a few times that they needed to go get a permit for this work that they were doing. And the report that came from the neighbors. I understand that is 4 times the fee, but I'd like to just point out that that is what is set in our ordinance. It's above and beyond what the Florida Building Code requires. The Florida Building Code leaves it up to the building official to make a determination if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 times, or code actually requires it to be 4 times above a certain amount, and we're just applying it. We've had several of these requests to reduce fees. I'd also like the commission to consider whether this fee of 4 times is too high. Again, it's your pleasure as to whether you want to do that or not. But, a consideration to say if the rule is indeed too severe or, we're just following the penalties as pointed out in our rules. Thank you.
All right, so I'll open this up to public comment. We have any input here on this issue? All right. Close that, open the floor for commissioner discussion. Martin, would you like to start us off?
So I got a straight question to you, Durrani. The 4 times the permit fee, that is the penalty that we currently have on. So we have in this particular case, $325 for the building permit fee. And then in addition, there's a 4-time penalty assessed to it.
For work without a permit.
No, but it's really 3 times plus the original.
That's what I thought, but
Look at
this
the
is
math.
not. No, actually it is, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
It is. So it is, so basically instead of paying the regular permit, you pay 4 times the permit.
Yes.
To answer your question as to, do I want to reduce that? No, I don't. Reduce the 4 times fee. Do I want to reduce the 4 times fee in general? No, I don't. Why? Because it gives us the ability to really go after repeat offenders, violators that should know better, and it gives them an incentive to do it right the first time instead of, trying to sneak by. So no, I don't want to reduce the 4 times fee. In this particular case, I can see where the applicant has had bad information. You clearly gotten bad information as far as what is a repair and what is a replacement. When looking at these pictures, you're clearly replacing sections of it, large sections of it, including there's a railing that is missing, which is a hazard, which, our building department basically, when you take a railing out and you put a railing back in, somebody that has qualifications needs to inspect that to make sure that you're safe and that everybody else is safe that ever stands on your balcony. Down the road, you, your guests, and everybody who purchases that unit. So, in short, I would be, because I can see where that miscommunication was coming from, I would be okay with reducing it. How much to reduce? I would not waive it, but how much to reduce it, we can discuss. I would be okay with a 50% reduction in the penalty.
So Durrani, I think this is the first time I've ever heard you come here and suggest that the full penalty shouldn't be applied. So I have a question for you. You said 1, 2, 3, 4. What would you do in this case if you had the ability to call this shot? And then with the additional thing, well, let's answer that question first.
So the answer is I would have applied two times.
2 times?
In this situation. But the reason why I'm saying examine this, the truth is we don't have the staff to manage everything that is required of us. The person who wrote this memo was Jean. This is the same week that she was doing payroll. We didn't have a town clerk.
It's hard to follow. Yeah.
No, it's just we had so much. So after we've gone through the process of writing up the paperwork, it's a lot of stuff we have to do to make sure that, we document, have everything, we send out the notice, and then in the end, we have to turn around and do another memo. And even when you go ahead and you approve the, waiving a certain percentage, Gino has to go and process that. It's a lot for us to do. So if we could have standardized things that make it less on the town, I'm just looking at, what we have to do, it would make it better for us.
So are you asking basically that you, or let's say the building department, would have the ability to double the permit fee if somebody does something incorrect, and then you also have the ability to say, you know, this person is so egregious, I want to put it before the commission to increase that. Is that what you're asking?
No, if I had to recommend anything, I would say we go 2 times the fee and.
Across
that's
the
it.
board?
Across the board.
But what about
That's it.
Martin's point? When somebody just totally takes it.
Again, it's to the pleasure of the commission how you want to do it. It's, again, if I had more staff, if we had, you know, more people to process this and to be able to write memos and reduce fees and cut checks, it takes time, is what I'm saying. So I'm looking at the resources that we have available and, you know, us
But
applying.
what I'm saying
rules
cuts
here.
back on all that paperwork. In other words, you have the ability to just say it's 2 times, sorry pal, end of story.
Well, again, the building, we have two levels. There's the Florida Building Code, which says the building official has the discretion to apply 1 to 4 times the amount of the fee based on how egregious it seems to be. I'm saying let the commission set one standard fee that's reasonable, right?
You're saying it's 2.
I'm just, you know, saying, you know, you guys have to think about it from your perspective.
So I don't disagree with your solution. And I'm surprised because Durrani obviously feels that in this case, Sloan Sherman wasn't egregious and totally intentional. Let's put it that way. So yes, your suggestion.
All right, Christine, what's your input here?
Could we
turned
do,
it off.
oh, sorry, could we do something in between? I mean, I understand your need to routinize the process so your staff can actually handle it. And we're not in the job of running around trying to make building harder or more expensive. So let's just establish that because I think there's been those rumors in the past and let's just put that to the side. Having said that, if you do have a routine 2% across the board, could we build in something that if this is your second offense or your third offense, or this 2 times is not even worth the paper, it's a $50 permit, and so 2 times is $10, it's not even worth, you know, figuring out, you know, sending out the bill. I mean, can we have some thresholds or some parameters built around it? I'm all for giving the building department that discretion because I'm presuming if any resident ever wanted to challenge that, they'd be doing exactly what they're doing right now, which is coming in front of the commission. So if we're trying to routinize the process, make it more streamlined, I'd also like to have a check and balance that gives you the opportunity to bring forward some bad apples that do this routinely just because the penalty is so insignificant. It's easier to pay the penalty and just keep on going. And then you look like the bad guy because you brought somebody forward.
Okay. I get the penalty deal. But the bigger picture here, which is what you're bringing up, is the fact that these appeals, and this is not the first one that we've seen, these appeals are ending up costing time and money that we really shouldn't have to deal with. So therefore, before I hone in on this individual situation, so therefore, if we're looking at the big picture here, which then the situation could work into, Christy, do you have any suggestions on a change to our ordinance where we could make this to cut down on the appeals process time, effort, and what have you, but yet still make the move that this is unacceptable? You need to ask the building department if you need a permit, not your neighbor, not your friend, not your contractor.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think under your current provision of 6758, you allow for someone to come seek a waiver of your permit fees. So you do a resolution, you set forth all your permit fees. I would recommend in that resolution, you could also do a set schedule for a penalty if you do work without permits. And as the Vice Mayor said, perhaps that is 2 times the permit fee, which right now, if your work is $5,000 or less, you have to pay double the permit fee plus $200. If the work is more than $5,000, it's actually a 4 times penalty, which is what this situation is. And that is because obviously it's bigger jobs, so there's more perhaps life safety issues. So in your resolution, your fee resolution, you could actually amend this provision so that you set out a specific fee schedule for penalties. In doing that, you prevent this situation we're going through now, where this penalty that this individual property owner has to pay has been spent by time staff has to spend working on this discussion tonight. So my recommendation would be get rid of the waiver, set out a specific schedule for people who do work without penalties, perhaps it go up as if it's a repeat offender, revise the ordinance to take out the waiver, and that way the building official has some discretion, but it's limited because
Right.
that's more work on your building official. And if
Exactly.
they're already tasked with time, then he may have to talk with people about it, something like that. But if you make it straightforward of, here's a penalty, it's applied across the board, it makes it easier for everyone. There's also a transparency aspect to it so that people know. And they could actually go and figure out what the risk is gonna be. If I do this without a permit, here's what I'm gonna have to face as a penalty. They know ahead of time. It can be advertised with our fee schedule. Everybody's on notice.
Okay, so that basically is right around what you were suggesting. So if we were going to do that, and I'm just throwing you out there, you're 2 times you said you thought was a reasonable possibility, and nobody seemed to have a problem with that. So we would have to look at that for this case as well versus do the whole thing and then change it after that.
It would be very unneighborly.
It would be very unattractive. So,
If I may.
Please.
I wholeheartedly disagree with setting a fee schedule out there for penalties for people doing work without a permit. I mean, if you're going through the trouble of going to town hall to figure out how much the penalty is for you not pulling the permit, your intention right there sets the tone for me to slap you with the maximum that I can possibly do. And I'll give you an example, and I'll give you the example based on me. If I am the one that does work without a permit, you should be slapping me with 4 times because I know better. And that is my point to this. Ms. Sloan, Ms. Sherman, did not know better. And I believe her that she did not know better. And that's why I'm okay with her coming here. Now, to the question of how can we make sure that staff is compensated.
or avoid the
properly,
appeals,
or,
avoid the
you know,
appeal process
or
consistently.
try to avoid the appeal
Right.
process. We could ask for, just like we do with the special magistrate, if you want to go in front of the special magistrate, you have to pay a fee. Pay a $200, $300 fee that sets off the administration. If you are successful, like Mrs. Sherman, if she is successful today, if she
Right.
would be successful in getting her fine reduced, we'll waive or we return that
So
administration
that
fee.
takes it out of the hands of the building department and the commission and puts it in the hands of the magistrate, of which she.
No, I'm talking about them coming to us, not in front of the magistrate.
Right, for the
Them-
appeals.
them-
I'm talking about the
For the
appeals,
appeal,
yeah.
come to us, but you have to pay an
Right.
administration fee. If me or Steve Vargas shows up tomorrow and we have been caught with our pants down to our ankles doing work without a permit, that in itself should warrant a full hit me over the head.
I don't think that takes care of what Durrani's saying, because what he's saying is no appeal process. Durrani says, sorry, permit 2 times, you broke the rules. End of story. It's just a set system. And then if you want to appeal to us to blast somebody who is really egregious, then you would come to the commission. That gets rid of all the bureaucracy and paperwork that he's trying to avoid.
Is that what you
I think
meant?
that's what he's saying.
A little bit more that I said, but along that line. But just to let you know that any decision that the building official makes can be appealed through the Board of Adjustment.
Right.
For the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, that's
Fine.
obviously, right.
So I think what I'm hearing is you want the ability that you just say 2 times. I'm sorry, you broke the rules, you get a 2-time penalty. And then that zips through. There's none of this appeal
Exactly.
process with all us.
Simplified process, something that's equitable, something that's not, as stressful to a homeowner.
But if you think somebody's outrageous, you still should have the ability to alert the town manager, alert the commission.
Absolutely.
That there needs to be a specific agenda item on this to deal with it.
On the specific, because it was much more
So
egregious than, say, the
egregious.
double? Is that
But
what
it'd
you're
be,
thinking?
he would be the one
Right,
presenting.
Right,
not the
no,
resident.
absolutely.
That takes care of your problem.
No, because I
No,
think, I don't
not
think
at
that
all.
the 2 times is.
He doesn't think 2 times is enough.
It's enough for somebody to, it's, when you're,
Would you go with 3?
no. No, because the 4, it's almost like a standard out there. It's,
Is that
every
a
town that
standard?
I've ever done work with, it was basically, if you're doing work without a permit, it was 4 times the permit fee. That's all the towns that I have worked in.
Madam Mayor, what I would recommend is if you want to have an appeal process, let them appeal to the Board of Adjustment. The reason I recommend that is because they do charge a fee and it's non-refundable. And I wouldn't recommend refunding an administrative fee because that is your staff time preparing for the item to be heard.
Right.
So, it takes up a lot of time and energy when there is appeal. It takes staff away from their regular duties. So if you want an appeal process, you've got one right now.
Right.
We could make it obviously cheaper with the normal things that the Board of Adjustment here. But if someone wanted to challenge his discretion, you could leave it as it is in the Florida Building Code. He can enforce a penalty from 1 to 4.
Up to, right.
And leave it up to his discretion. Now keep in mind, when you have discretion, that's when people start talking to you and it eats up a lot of your time. So if you don't want to draw a line in the sand, just recognize that he's going to have that discretion and then allow for an appeal process.
Right, because this is the gentleman that sees how egregious the situation is. Right? That's the one that's there. I mean, we see the pictures, but that's not.
So I would go back and I, just
Tell me.
to keep this conversation going or hopefully end it, outside of what's happening tonight, if we want to look at a longer term solution to this process, I would look at a 2-time fee with the ability for the building official to charge up to 4, but if it is a repeat offense, that it immediately mandates something above, 4. You go from 2 to 4. And I think that appeals, should appeal that for the folks that didn't know exactly what was going on the first time, second time they do it, they know. They know.
All right, so I think you got some good notes from us, but should we go back to what we have in front of us?
Right, because that sounds like we need to do a little separate paragraph that we'll discuss next week.
Right. So let's talk about what's in front of us. Martin says, no way, right?
No, he said.
As far as
Right, now we're talking about this.
item at hand, item number 2, I would reduce the penalty down to 2 times.
Okay.
Divide 975 in half.
we're back
No,
to
let's
this.
do
Yes.
625, 650. Instead of the 325 permit fee, make a 650 permit fee. Which is a 2-time permit fee.
Mhm.
Is it? Yeah.
No, if you reduce this to 9 to
I'm
650.
sorry, the work without permits, you're right. The penalty, reduce the penalty from
9.
Oh, geez.
975.
975 down to 325.
No,
No.
387.50.
So you're halving.
I thought that's what you originally said. And I actually did this math.
So, but
wrong.
that's not 2 times the permit fee. You guys do realize we've been
$650
in
is the
budget
term.
all afternoon,
Yeah,
so
I know.
I
I'm
can
just-
kind of get
I'm
it.
cutting the penalty in half because he suggested it, so I actually did the math.
650 would be 2 times the permit fee, which is what we basically discussed, right?
That's fine.
Okay, so I would say I could be fine with the 650. Hey, Boo?
Same thing here.
Sure.
With the 650 reduction or with the 650 total?
650 total.
Total, the 325 permit fee plus a 325
No.
penalty.
No, they're saying
You're reducing
325 plus 650.
Yeah, you
You're
still get
reducing
the
the work
building
without
fee
a
is still
permit
part
fee.
of the process.
Okay.
Still have to have a
975 to
permit fee.
650.
She's gonna finish their work. So, is that livable?
Do you understand? Well, she's gonna pay an additional 650 instead of 975.
Right.
Correct.
I would,
You're taking.
I would reduce it further, but that's.
That's what, when I divide in half, it's 487.
That's what he tried.
Then I would go with your half.
487.50 or 6.
That would
I
be
say
my
650.
compromise.
What do you
I
think?
would go down to 325 penalty, but.
I know, the math starts to blow my mind.
Picture this, it's a 4-time.
I know, no, I get it.
4-time permit fee.
Yeah,
right?
I get the
One
notes.
is the permit, three is the penalty.
Right.
Permit.
So it
plus
ends up,
plus a
so the
one
full is
permit
7-ish.
Would be my
Right.
half.
But the permit, the permit fee should be is part of the
The
deal.
permit fee you can't reduce.
Right, the
It's
permit fee-
325 no matter
But-
what.
but
What
correct.
you're looking
It's
to
the
reduce,
highlighted area
They've
that
paid
it's-
975. What do you want to reduce
So if
the
you're saying-
975?
I would be at 325. I would
So you're saying
also,
one
as a
time-
compromise,
one
go a little
time-
bit
So
higher.
you're only
One
giving
time
one
the
time
permit.
the fee then?
Yeah, you're only
So-
getting
One time the fee, correct.
Okay, you started at two,
Two.
that's why we're a
No,
little
no,
confused
I'm
here.
sorry, that,
The language is very peculiar.
No, because it's.
English is
it's-
not my first language.
Oh. Now
I'm
you're
gonna pull that
You're
back.
gonna fall on that one? I say it still has to be 2 times. Just
Which
because,
would be 6.
right, which would be back to the 650.
I'm at 650.
So 650, I'm roughly 500 and you're 325?
Want to do a half? Cut the 3
Between.
time in half?
And go to 5? Because there's only 4 of us. We don't want to sit here all night, two.
Oh, come on, why not? Right?
Put
500.
a break.
So, can you live with 500?
Can
I
I live
know,
with 500?
you know what I mean.
After tonight, I can live with anything.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Okay, I would go with 5, you would go with 5, so we
Let your
need a,
neighbors know to please pull permits.
Unfortunately, it's actually the HOA that should have been doing all of this work, not me. So that's.
That's
but in
between you
general,
and the
everybody
HOA.
ask first. Worst case scenario, they say don't need one, we're good to go.
I think the thing is ambiguous whether it's a repair or a replacement
Mm.
and what.
This
No.
Yeah.
right there is not a repair.
Yeah.
Finger out of the dike is not a.
Okay, so,
Okay, so
All right, so-
for the record, you're reducing it to 500, which
Correct.
means they're getting a refund of $475.
Correct.
all right,
You're
so,
welcome. So, but can we revisit this maybe at the next meeting to have some language?
Yes.
right,
Yes.
which is where it really ended in, so actually that started us off. Okay, are we good? Do we need a motion to,
You need a motion. and
all right,
second.
anybody want to give us a motion?
I'm making a motion to reduce the penalty
25.
from 975 for agenda item number 2, reducing the penalty from $975 to $500.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
You dragged that one out.
She did, really? All right, then. Good to go. So what do we got next here? So we have, it's not on mine, where is it?
Number
But we
3.
have number 3, right? So that is proposed ordinance to extend front elevation architectural requirements to all elevations and to allow flat roofs. Attorney Godot, is this one on you?
Yes,
Oh,
Madam Mayor.
Let
Thank
me
you.
read the title first. Sure. Please. Second read of ordinance number 2022-09, an ordinance of the town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances, specifically the land development code, to extend the architectural requirements for front elevations to all of elevations for single-family dwellings and accessory structures, and to permit flat roofs with restrictions on single-family residential dwellings and accessory structures by making revisions to chapter 64 zoning, article 1, district regulations, section 64-1, RSF and RSE single-family residential district, section 64-3, Ocean View special area, article 3, supplemental regulations, section 64-50, location of exterior residential equipment and accessories, and section 64-60, decks, patios, driveways, parking areas, steps, stoops, and terraces, unenclosed and uncovered. Chapter 67, buildings and building regulations, article 3, technical codes and other construction standards, division 1, generally, section 67-37, roof systems, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and unprecedented.
All right, Town Attorney Godot. After that, would you please advise us on this item? Good job,
Thank you,
Tracy.
Madam Mayor. As you may recall, this is second reading of ordinance 2022-09. The main part of this ordinance is to change the town's code in numerous sections to allow for 2 roofing systems. Currently, we allow for pitch roofs. This would now allow for flat roofs. As you may recall, we discussed on first reading that in preparing this ordinance and working with the Planning and Zoning Commission, this went through several different versions. The biggest struggle was that currently under the current code, pitch roofs, you're allowed to have a flat roof usable area that you could use for a deck or a patio or outdoor space. There are no restrictions currently in the code on how you use that flat roof usable area. So it could be on your second story. The only real limitation is the size, and it can't exceed 20% of your total roofing area. So in preparing this to allow for a second roofing system of the town, Planning and Zoning Commission's ultimate recommendation to the town commission was to make the two roofing systems match and that both could have a flat roof usable area. What we've done with this ordinance is to try to restrict the size of that flat roof usable area, to limit how high it can be, and to try to prevent it from looking into neighbors, bedrooms and things like that, and appearing to be imposing on others' privacy. As we discussed on first reading, this may not be perfect, and I believe it is not perfect because it touches on so many different provisions in the code. So it may be a work in progress, but we do need to have this because we are seeing more and more projects coming forward, and we've got a couple pending that want flat roofs systems on their house. Based on first reading, we did add language in section 64-1 that prohibits you from connecting or joining a balcony to a flat roof usable area so as to increase the size that's allowed under this ordinance. If there are any questions on this specific ordinance, as I said, it's not perfect, but I think it's the first step in the right direction of starting to allow a second roof system.
All right. So I'll open the floor for public comment.
Carolyn Cassidy, 7 Hudson. I think part of the confusion with all this, because I've been going to all these planning and zoning meetings, and we did hear a case on the Board of Adjustment a few months ago, 95 Island Drive South, where they wanted to he wanted to have a flat roof and go ahead with it before the ordinance was approved so we could enclose the interior. Flat roof up over a second floor is a flat roof that can't be used for anything. No equipment storage, no usable area, no exterior access. A flat roof area that you're talking about is only over the first floor. So you'd access it by bedrooms or whatever on the second floor. And the two terms are so close, the flat roof and flat roof area, that I think there's been a lot of confusion. And a flat roof over a second story is never to be used for recreational area, equipment storage, access, nothing. So.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Please.
You provided that comment, I think, at the last time, either before planning and zoning. So what I did in the ordinance is I changed it to just from flat roof area to flat roof usable area.
Right.
So hopefully it's a little bit clearer.
Yeah, but just that that's only over first story.
Right, so it limits it to
second
14
story.
feet.
Yeah.
So that's the max height that you could have your flat roof usable area, so it cannot be on the second story, which
Right.
obviously is currently allowed under the current code.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? All right, public comments now closed. We'll open the floor for commission discussion. Martin, anything to add?
I think we have it down as good as it gets for now.
For the
and
moment.
We'll
So at first reading, I'm sorry.
Are you finished, Martin?
The first meeting, it went it was voted in 5-0. I've spoken to Christie about this, and I hope other commissioners agree with me. There's so much in here that we had to vote on. It just reminds me of when I read these stories coming out of Washington DC where they're throwing in all these earmarks. We were asked to vote on introducing flat roofs to town, and then we were asked to vote on the usable area, and there was some language issues, so we were confused, and we sorted that out. But I asked Christie that in the future, if we have things like this, can we please break them down into separate items so that we don't have to vote for the package. We can vote for the flat roof. We can vote for the usable area of the flat roof as two separate votes. That's it.
All right. Christine?
Mayor, can you turn your mic on?
Oh, no.
I agree with Christie that this is, it's complicated, and unfortunately, we'd all prefer that things be broken down, but sometimes it's not that easy.
In this particular case, it's very hard.
You start to unpeel the onion and you just cry even more. The one thing that I would like to see a little addressed as we continue the discussions is the location of this flat roof usable area, because the location is as important, I think, as the size. If your location abuts your neighbor's master bedroom and private patio is a very different story than if it's in the center of the house and is not encroaching necessarily in privacy on either side. So I am in favor of approving this evening, but I would like to see that issue either addressed by P&Z or by staff kind of going forward, because I think the privacy of the usable area is the key.
Yeah, that's the concern.
Yeah.
I have the same notes, we need to continue working on this, but we also need something because I've been going to those P&Z as well, Martin I know has. And we've watched them struggle trying to come up with something because there's a lot in the chute there coming forward. They have to have something. So I say, let's move it along. So would somebody,
Make a motion to
Thank you.
approve ordinance number 2022-09 as presented.
do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, so let's see, agenda item number 4, P&Z.
There's no P&Z.
Mayor, there was no P&Z
Yeah, there's no P&Z.
report because there was
We
no
didn't have a
P&Z
meeting.
meeting. Correct.
Okay, so nix that guy. All right, town manager's report?
In the interest of time, I won't read my report to you. It has been submitted to you in your packages. It's also on the screen for the public to view. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, agenda item number 6, Town Attorney Godot. Anything to report?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Excuse me, can I comment on the manager's report?
Well,
That's,
we don't usually have that, but for you, Terry, come on up.
No, Tracy's done a great job, and I know there's pending projects, that's what's sort of nagging at the back of my mind. When you leave and we get this new person, will there be a list of the ones that we've already approved and get done at some reasonable point?
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. And I think that was one of the things the commission really wanted to do, the overlap in
Right.
having the interim come and meet with me and talk about different projects that were ongoing. I'm also going to give people my phone number. If they have questions after I leave.
You
they
sure?
Well, there's one
Give me a
particular
call.
project I've been worried about for years, and we did approve it, and it will get done, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
By the way, the woman, Erin Gray, I think her name is, we're obviously gonna take a look at that overgrowth on North Harbor, where she had the accident.
So we
Yeah.
talked about this for years, and it's about encroachments into the rights of way.
Mhm,
And we have talked about sightline issues
Yeah.
at the corners. So that's really a policy decision of this commission. If you
Was
want
it-
us to take care of right-of-way encroachments, it needs to be a
No,
policy decision.
Isn't that a
of the
police,
town.
the safety
No.
decision? Oh, it
No,
doesn't
it's
reach
not.
the level of safety?
Because there's no ordinance that
Right.
defines what it is, other than it is in violation of the right of way, but so are so many
Many,
other
right.
properties.
Right.
Okay, so you're saying it's not a safety consideration over there?
I'm saying
Yeah.
that it probably is a safety consideration, but not one I can take action for.
So something we should maybe put in our little package of things to
So-
go forward with, because we've talked about
You've
these
talked about it
sightline
a
over,
lot.
time to do something possibly.
Yeah, and you're kind of taking care of it a little bit on Old Ocean
On Old
right
Ocean,
now,
absolutely.
but nowhere else.
But
in
nowhere
town.
else, and that was a perfect example.
Well, we did take care of it on Inlet Cave, on one corner house. On Spanish
Well,
River
as
Drive.
we move forward, we're taking care of it
As we're working
construction
projects.
happens.
Exactly.
And we're doing the hold harmless agreements
Mhm.
now, for anybody who wants to plant things in the right of way.
But worth
But
considering.
for old projects or anything that's existing now, we haven't been authorized to
So we're
take care of those.
considering
But
moving
Steve, if
forward.
you'd like to bring it forward, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just said, let's
I don't
put that
understand why
on.
it's
So
not
basically,
police.
the chief cannot enforce anything. There's a
Has to be an ordinance.
bush that is overgrowing into the road, and you
So-
do not have the ability.
The ordinance that we would be able to enforce in this circumstance, like many others in town, is that it is a violation of the right of way. If the actual planting is in the right of way. However, there's about 80% of the
Right.
homes in
Right.
Ocean Ridge that have the exact same situation.
Mhm.
So if I take enforcement action there, that homeowner then calls the police when they find 7 other properties in Ocean Ridge that meet the same criteria, and now I'm doing code enforcement on 8 different property owners. That is really not a sightline issue. It's a matter of a violation of the right of way. So what the ordinance should focus on is intersections and roadways that create safety concerns, and therefore a site triangle needs to be created and placed into the ordinance, or some form of an ordinance needs to be structured that gives us the ability to look at it from a safety perspective rather than a right-of-way violation.
Right.
I don't understand this at all. So if I go through I'll put a huge boulder on Old Ocean, you can't do anything? This is nutty. You got a line of sight at an intersection that you as a safety officer say is unsafe, but you can't do anything about it?
What enforcement action can I take?
Trim it back so there is a line of sight.
That's gonna be 80% of your properties in town.
Well,
No,
at the
I'm not
moment,
talking right of ways, I'm talking safety. That
So-
if there's a safety violation, you can't do anything about it?
well, then you
Not a
become,
violation, a
it turns
safety
into
issue.
everybody else. So bottom line would be,
The issue.
going forward
The
here,
issue can be interpreted as to whether it's a safety issue or not by my interpretation.
Right.
You don't
He
have an
wants more
ordinance that
clear.
gives me anything, just like Ronnie was saying about the 4 times speed. That's clearly outlined in the ordinance. I don't have a site triangle outlined in the ordinance. I don't have what is considered a safety issue in the ordinance. So I'm making every interpretation, and then I'm having to find an ordinance that may cover that topic to be able to do enforcement, rather than having an ordinance that gives me the ability to just do enforcement right from the very beginning.
So as a trained police officer and safety officer, there's nothing in the, I will be a policeman handbook
So
that says sign of light, what is it called? Sight of, line of sight.
line of sight,
Line of sight is a traffic safety issue that you can fix.
not covered in policing at all.
Wow.
right. But
Okay.
this is something that we have talked and kicked down the road for quite a long time. We've slowly but surely made some inroads
And
with a lot of
this-
work on Old Ocean. Maybe we can do the same
And
throughout
this
town.
exact property was an issue a year ago when we had FPNL
Right.
dealing with planting of power poles
I
in the
remember.
exact same area, and I addressed it as a safety concern then. So it's
All right,
not,
So let's take it
So,
on.
on the next agenda item, I would like to have that as a discussion item for us to discuss.
With some ideas of how to go
And come
forward
up with an
here.
ordinance that actually gives our chief of police the ability to enforce critical
When it comes
safety.
to safety, yeah.
Right. But also a plan of some sort, because as you said, with 80%, that across the board thing is going to turn people upside down. So we need a plan.
correct.
So Chief, given all the other things that are happening in the next month, is that reasonable to expect? Because we can say,
Yeah, we can talk about it.
let's discuss it. What we really need to do to have a good discussion is to have some staff work put behind it, so we know what we're discussing and it's not just.
I'm sure that with the assistance of our town attorney who represents multiple towns, there's probably some
Something out
ordinance
there.
somewhere that already exists that would be very
Exactly.
beneficial for our use.
Right, something that we can utilize.
But if we're not ready for the next meeting, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Commissioner Michelak?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
will be the
but I
meeting.
means
would like
soon.
to have it, I would like to have it addressed because that is clearly something, I mean, there's an accident that happened.
Right.
And, I mean, it's just mind blowing that we cannot act on even after an accident.
And I responded to the scene. I was the officer that was on scene.
You were
when
a
then-
friendly officer.
Well, I mean, I guess sometimes I'm friendly, sometimes.
So just to clarify for staff, we're not talking about going after the right of way planning. We're talking about going after specific safety issues that you see in town. Sightline.
Right, so you can see, and that's like you
Because
said.
we don't
that's-
want to sweep through town and right away.
Well, that's what we're talking about, so therefore.
No, that's not what we're talking
That's what we're trying
Well,
not to get into.
Exactly,
But
that's what
we're trying to avoid. But nonetheless, in order to make safety the number one concern, excellent idea, Christie. Somebody, we're not the only people like this. See what's out there that we might be able to use. Am I seeing Terry on my right side?
So the sightline issues that you speak of is also going to affect the site of our traffic signs. There are a lot
Right.
of traffic
Yeah.
signs
Yes, that's
that
one
have
of our-
vegetation over them that you can't see, so it's
The
gonna include
stop
that.
sign
Glad Billy's
that's
not here to
also
hear
is,
that.
completely
Okay.
covered.
Can I make
You
a
don't see
comment?
that
Must
until
you?
pass it.
I know this happens in another area, that the police chief can be given another hat to wear with no pay raise.
Absolutely.
But he can be called the traffic engineer. And the traffic engineer will have certain powers to deal with sightline issues without going through a whole new ordinance. So you could pass a resolution giving the chief the power as a traffic engineer. He won't be a police chief then, he'll be a traffic engineer to solve that problem.
Okay.
And that'd be quick and easy. You could
Christie,
research
see what
that.
you got.
They have done that other places.
Madam Mayor, I would imagine we're gonna probably have to use code enforcement for some of the more difficult property owners, and if we have to use code enforcement, it needs to be in an ordinance.
Okay.
But
So
that's-
let's.
But I agree with the traffic engineer idea, absolutely, I think we already have language in there regarding the signs.
Okay.
Correct.
So, thank you, Terry. Let's see. Chief Jones, do you have?
So my report is also contained, there's nothing unusual or abnormal about the report. The timing associated with the fire rescue report is pretty consistent with what you normally see. There are a few that are above the 10 minutes, but they've been adjusted accordingly. Additionally, you see the numbers that we share with you each month. Statistically, our numbers are very similar to what they are from month to month, so we're not seeing an increase or decrease in anything specific this month. The enforcement activities are listed as well. You see, we just in the month alone, we had 13 arrests. So that's obviously, an increase from last year to this year. Other than that, there's nothing crazy or unusual to talk about. We are in the process of replacing a battery backup system inside Town Hall, which will result in a power outage and telephone outage this coming Friday at 4 p.m.
Okay.
Till,
It's approximately expected to last about 1 hour. We will send out a Civic Ready notification just prior to the outage. The 911s will be transferred to the city of Boynton, so in the event you do need emergency services, those will still be received by us via radio. So don't think for a second we're not here. But if you call and the phone line doesn't go immediately into dispatch and you end up hearing me answer on a cell phone or something, that is why that is happening.
All right.
So
Thank you.
that's that. And then, I think that's it for me.
The signs?
Signage.
Yes, I was just gonna say, can we talk about signage for a moment? As you can tell in the back of the room, there are two signs. The sign at the top is the traditional wooden sign that you're used to seeing with the outline painted and all of the normal paintings that you're used to seeing. The sign below that, that's the speed limit sign, has some new color to it. That is a metal sign. It has all the wood grain printing and everything in the decal to actually make it look like a wooden sign. However, it's estimated to be approximately half the cost of a wooden sign. So if there's any entertainment to still keep the consistent look that we have become so happy with, that sign at the bottom can obviously serve that and potentially save the town a considerable amount of money. We are waiting on formal quotes to come in, both on the wooden signs and the metal signs. So far, the wooden signs are averaging out to be approximately $550 per post, which would equate to about $8,050 to do the signage associated with just Old Ocean. Not counting the signage that we've talked about along A1A corridor. So obviously, if we were able to reduce that by half, we could potentially save 50% and increase the longevity of the signs that we have and reduce the maintenance.
what metal is it?
It's actually an aluminum product, but the printing is what's so key. The change in printing has recently been established to be able to use almost what is similar to that on a police car. They can literally print anything you want on a vinyl material that then is applied to the aluminum to give it
The
that
whole thing
look.
is encased in vinyl and then printed, or printed and then encased.
Correct.
Oh, that's excellent. So it's like when you get new windows. Vinyl
Exactly,
clad.
and it's also, you have the availability to have that reflective, which is what we've presented. So if light hits it just a certain way, you'll see reflectivity come from it. Or you can actually go with a non-reflective product, either one.
Okay.
So it's just an alternative option.
Mm-hmm.
And as to Fayette, we can do those signs also for Fayette as far as the no turnaround.
Correct.
There's an issue that.
And Fayette is included on the map
Right.
that I've provided
Yeah.
for all of you to review, which has the locations by visibility factor throughout the town for everything associated with Old Ocean, as well as the corresponding side roads that interface with A1A. And we did include the signage for them to get a sign. The sign that we had originally proposed would be local traffic, no through traffic, something to that effect. But if they would rather, have different verbiage on it, I'm not opposed to it.
It already says dead end on one side.
Yeah, they wanted no
The
turnaround.
turnaround,
Yeah,
the turnaround.
which is doable instead of the local
Pretty
sign,
soon,
right?
the trucks
Same
are gonna
thing.
be hitting all the signs.
And when you print these signs, because it's a printed material versus an engraved material, if we decide we want to change the content of that sign, we just buy a new sticker and put over the
There
old
you go.
sticker. It's very low maintenance.
Yes.
It's very easy to keep up with.
Simple to edit.
Correct.
So I have a question totally unrelated. When you showed us the picture of the mask and the guns and all that,
Yes, sir.
what was the first thing that the officer spotted?
So,
Because I'm sure they weren't laid
The
out in
yellow
the back
mask.
seat, right? Unless they were.
The one looks like a
So the
whip.
first thing she noticed was that the car had unusually dark
Right,
tint.
you said that.
Right,
And that always draws our attention because people try to conceal their behavior.
right.
And then as soon as she approached the vehicle and she smelled marijuana, that was clue number 2.
Yeah.
And then when she started looking around and she noticed what she thought was a gun,
In the front seat or back seat?
I believe it was in the front seat.
No
Just
rocket-
laying on top of the
no
seat?
I
rocket
don't think it was
scientist.
just laying on top of the seat. I think it was being concealed a little better than
Pseudo
that.
hidden.
Okay.
But she noticed it and she said, hey, I need, backup. I heard her on the radio that day. And I don't know if you guys know or not, but I work. You see me out here doing traffic stops, backing up the office.
I was just curious because the amount of stuff you pulled out of the car, I was thinking like, if these people just left like masks sitting in the back seat, when you pulled them over.
And I have another picture I can share with you too, but it was on my phone, so it was a little harder to put up there, from just a few months ago, which is multiple rifles and
Right.
handguns as well, out of another vehicle on Ocean Avenue. So,
That was a scary one.
I know.
that's why I think we have to be as diligent as we've been lately.
And we appreciate that. And Nubia, we appreciate that. Okay, agenda item number 9, building official Guy. You have something to report for us?
So we've been extremely busy this month with some, shifts in our department, so I don't have the regular report, I apologize for that. But it's pretty much the same, the pace is just the same with everything. I'm seeking consent, however, to utilize a tool that is in our Florida Building Code and is also in our ordinance. It's called a annual facility permit. What this does, it is a permit that is granted to a facility, an institution, and not to a contractor. The types of, locations that could utilize this would be mostly government agencies such as ourselves. We actually do pull permits whenever we're replacing windows, doing work, changing, crossovers and such. We have to pull a permit each time. And obviously, I've been talking about this on other topics, the amount of time, staff time that it actually takes to do stuff. So if we can reduce staff time doing stuff, it overall helps everything. Another type of agency, community associations, could also use this for their maintenance staff to have a single permit for the whole year that could cover a bunch of repairs that they would undertake each year. So we have it in our code. It's something we can do. However, the one thing is that we need to apply a fee, and the ordinance requires the commission to actually make changes to our fee schedule. It is not an item that we have on our fee schedule at this time, and I recommend that we actually consider the amount of $2,500, which would be a year-long permit for the town and any other institution that qualifies to get this type of permit, that would actually cover anywhere from 3 to an average of 10, which is what we've seen over the years. The fee, is just an average of what we've seen on the type of work. So we're recommending $2,500 for this permit and for the commission to consider us adopting this.
So you had shared with me during staff that it was not only the town, it was other places, for instance, the Ocean Club that might have multiple ongoing maintenance. It might be Wellington Arms that has 5 or 6 maintenance things that they do on a routine basis, just trying to bring it all under one umbrella, correct?
Including the condominiums.
Right,
Mhm.
multifamily. So it's
Yeah.
not a continual,
That is correct.
Individual
So if
permit.
we have a group, an association, or organized group that does facility maintenance, they would qualify
Mhm.
to
But
get this type of permit.
This particular, sorry, this particular permit would not be used, for example, for spalling issues that are occurring in some of the oceanfront condominiums where they have to do concrete work, concrete repairs.
So for the ones that we can see right now, those would not qualify, because those are extensive repairs.
Right.
There are other times when the spalling is small, the
Right.
repair is in the region of $2,500, $5,000, which are mostly hairline cracks and that sort of stuff, that would take under a week to complete. It's not the major ones. And this would actually allow us to be involved and to oversee maintenance crew that are there to actually improve the quality of the type of work, and even to point out that this, what you think is a minor repair, may be larger.
Right.
We need to do this on a larger permit and have an engineer come in and take a look at this, as opposed to just caulking and patching over something that might be a larger issue.
I think it's a wonderful idea, but I just have one question, which I don't know if anyone's gonna be able to answer. What is the smallest HOA in town? And I specifically bring this up because when you go south, there's those 3 townhomes that are attached to each other on the west side of the road down by Hammock. And I wonder if they have an HOA, in which case 2,500 would be very steep. But I don't know the answer to the smallest building lot or so.
Then they probably don't have that much work and they can pull individual
Right, they can pull a
permits.
regular
right,
permit
they would
for
do
that.
they would do the math,
They
right?
don't
They
have
would
to
have
do a
to,
facilities permit, they could just do a regular permit.
Okay.
if they wanted to on their own. Yeah, I think it's a great idea too. It's like an
Yeah.
umbrella,
It's great.
streamlining. Martin?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and thank you for coming up with the
Yeah,
idea.
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, then, any comments, questions on the town engineer report, which is in here? Okay, the other one I want to say is I just want to give a shout out to our new town clerk, Kelly. This is our new town clerk, everybody. This is everybody. Please welcome her. She'll be there doing everything she can to help us. And any other comments here? What time do we got? Meeting adjourned at 8:17. And we're out. Thank you, everybody.
Is this your water cup?
Yeah.
I just don't want you to
I did,
forget
I
it.
left it already once.
I leave my stuff everywhere, so.
Oh my, you do? I thought it was just me.
No, they call me after almost every brony meeting and say,